So, just as a mind is self reflective and creative, a mind is also constantly evolving, constantly growing, and learning new things and taking in new information. So, when it comes to your mind or my mind, or anyone's mind for that matter, a mind that is self reflective, and I'm talking about human minds in particular, personal minds, these minds are capable of self reflection, of being creative, and of evolving, just like how uh, creatures on a planet evolve and grow over time. So, a mind is capable of gaining new information and evolving in that same manner, right? If you look at the mind of a child versus the mind of an adult, it's pretty obvious there's a big difference there in how evolved the mind is, right? And not just that, but every mind, every person you come across who has lived a life on a planet and tried to survive in an environment has a mind that is different from everyone else. So all of our minds are different. And while they are different, they are also constantly evolving, constantly growing as they learn new things, right? So try to compare the mind of a artist versus the mind of a scientist versus the mind of a politician, and how each of these minds perceive, explore, and understand the world. Compare your mind to the mind of a dictator. Compare the mind of a dictator to the mind of a mystic. All of our minds are different, right? All of our minds evolve and grow depending on how and depending on what we learn in our lives, depending on how we've lived our lives and what has happened in our lives. All of that plays an important role in the evolution of our minds. Why is that? And can we see this, the example of the evolution of mind happening in nature? Of course, if you look at nature, what is evolution? Evolution is nature learning from its own mistakes, right? If you look at evolution, and if what you see in nature is a representation of the larger mind, right? So the activity of the larger mind presents itself as the world, as creation. I mean, if you look at nature, you can clearly see evolution in action, right? How creatures developed ways of surviving in their environment, how they camouflage themselves, how they hunt for prey. All of this developed over time. Creatures who go from swimming in the ocean to coming on land and developing feet so they can walk on dry ground. This is all nature learning, nature evolving, just as our minds learn and evolve. So does the larger mind. But unfortunately, what tends to happen is that people tend to think that their minds have learned and developed everything it needs to learn. They fail to realize that mind is constantly learning, constantly developing, constantly evolving. If you read comments on social media, you can clearly see this in action. People arguing with others about their own perspectives, as if their perspective is the only perspective and the right perspective. They fail to see that every perspective has its own way of observing the world. every mind is on a different level of understanding. But unfortunately, everyone thinks that they are right up here, right? And they argue and bicker from that perspective. They fail to see that different minds are on different levels in our understanding of ourselves, in our understanding of nature, of the world. And everyone is failing to see everyone else's perspective. So everything we do, when we judge, when we discriminate, when we nitpick, when we try to get people to see our perspective, even when we are guiding someone or teaching someone or helping or motivating or inspiring someone, we are doing it from our level of understanding. And our level could be any way. There is no upper level to how much the mind can learn. You can always go higher and higher in your understanding of the world and yourself. So do not think that mind, that when you finish college or university and you know everything there is to know about the world, that is as far as you can go. There's always more to learn. The mind can always take in more information. So in this part of the video, I just wanted to touch on that, understanding that mind is always evolving, always learning, always growing in its wisdom and knowledge of itself and of the world.